यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः यश्छन्दसा मृषभो विश्वरूपः छन्दोभ्योऽध्यमृतात् सम्बभूव समेन्द्रो मेधया आस्पृणोतु अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासं शरीरं मे विचर्षणं जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तमा कर्णाभ्यां भूरिविश्रुवं ब्रह्मणः कोशोऽसि मेधया पिहितः श्रुतं मे गोपाय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिः पृष्ठं गिरेरिव ऊर्ध्वपवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमितमस्मि द्रविणगुं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इतीर्तिशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः आप्यायन्तु मम अङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुः श्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्यां मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्तु अनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्माः ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः वाङ् मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्म एधि वेदस्य मानि ईस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनादितेन अहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः भद्रं नो अपि वातय मनः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तगुंह देवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं Mumukshurvai sharanamaham prapadye. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Narayanam Padma Bhuvam Vasishtam Shaktim Cha Tatputra Parasharam Cha Vyasam Shukam Gaudapadam Mahantam Govi Yogindra Indramat Athasya Sishyam Shri Shankaracharya Athasya Padmapadam Cha Hastamalakam Cha Sishyam Tam Totakam Vartikakaramanyānasmadgurūn Santato Manatosmi. Om Vishwam Darpana Dishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijantargatam Pashyanat Manimayaya Bahirivot Bhutam Yatha Nidraya Sar Yasakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanam Evadvayam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Bijasyantarivānkuro Jagadidam Prang Nirvikalpam Punaha Maya Kalpita Desha Kala Kalana Vaichitriya Chitri Kritam Maya Viva Vijrambhayatyapi Maha Yogi Vayasvechaya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Yasyaiva Spuranam Sadatmakam Asatkalparthakam Bhasate Sakshat Tattvamasiti Veda Vachasa Yo Bodhayatyashritan Yat Sakshat Karanat Bhavenna Punaravrittir Bhavambo Nidhau Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Nana Chidragatottara Sthita Mahadeepa Prabhabhaswaram Jnanam Yasya Tu Chakshuradikarna Dvara Bahispandate Janami Titameva Bhantamanubhatye Tatsamastam Jagat Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Deham Pranamapi Indriyanapi Chalam Buddhyam Cha Shunyam Viduhu Stri Balanda Jadopamastwamiti Bhranta Bhrisham Vadinaha Maya Shakti Vilasa Kalpita Maha Vyamoha Samharine Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye. So as we revise these 4 sutras, as I mentioned to you before, we will not go through the exact repetition of the analysis of the 4 sutras. Instead, we will certainly mention it from time to time as necessary, but more importantly, view the importance of these 4 sutras conceptually as relevant to our lives. This is what we will attempt to do. So I have some commentary on it, so you have another dimension to look at as you revisit the 4 sutras. So that's what my thinking is, plan is, and hopefully we'll follow that. So what we saw in the last class was an analysis of Sri Shankaracharya ji's Adhyasa Bhashya. So, this points out to the importance of Adhyasa. Adhyasa means a error, it's a mistake, as a great footnote to the introduction of Brahma Sutra. Importance of error as an important footnote in the introduction to Brahma Sutra. Why? How? So this should be understood that out of all of our known viewpoints in the world, spiritual pursuits, spiritual disciplines, schools of thought, whatever you may call it, amongst all of them, because everybody has a way of analyzing our life and seeing what the future is and where are we going, what's going to happen to us, what's the nature of God. All of those kinds of things is really what occupies the spiritual disciplines of the world. So out of them, it should be appreciated, it should be understood that Vedanta Shastra, the Vedic Shastra, is unique among all these spiritual pursuits. But to the best of our knowledge, no one else says what we are saying. How? All other pursuits accept a human being in an inferior status. Inferior status means that you look at your pursuits and your experiences and the limitations of it, the problems of it, the problems of the experiences in life. And so all of the spiritual pursuits accept it and say, yes, we know you are fallible. We know you are limited. We know you are in deep problems in life and so on. But let me give you a recipe to how to improve yourself and how you can get better. Okay, this is what everybody says. Vedanta Shastra, on the other hand, is unique. How? Vedanta says, you are perfect already. You are where you want to be. Because we have some aspirations, that we should, as we will see, that we should be totally happy and unlimited in terms of our freedom and so on. This is what we aspire to be. So Vedanta Shastra says, no, you are not limited even now. You are perfect. It's just that you don't know it. So this is the uniqueness of the Vedanta Shastra. Very different. This should be appreciated. It does not accept the premise that we are in any way limited, any way just a jiva. No. There is something about us that we need to appreciate, which means that you are already perfect. So therefore, this being the case, what is the mistake? How is it that I don't know that? What is the mistake that I'm making about myself? That is the subject of Adhyasa. So now you can see the importance of the Adhyasa Bhashya by Adi Shankara as a footnote to the introduction of the Brahma Sutra. This should be appreciated. So now, after summarizing the Adhyasa last week in our revision, as we saw, the defense of the Adhyasa. Because other schools of thought, they feel that you have not proven that this is an Adhyasa. And so whenever we give some examples about the rope and snake and say, oh, no, that's completely different. And we saw all the 4 reasons why they thought that the rope snake is not appropriate, is not relevant, because we saw the 4 of them. And so we defended and we said, no, that is not the case. You have not poked any relevant holes in our argument. It is in fact Adhyasa. So this is an important thing to see. So this is what the Adhyasa is. Now, having done that, we come to the 4 sutras. And the 4 sutras, as we know, let's chant it only once, not twice. Athato Brahma Jigyasa Janmadhyasya Yataha Shastrayo Nitvat Tattu Samanvayat. These are the 4 sutras. These 4 sutras are given an extraordinary amount of importance within the Brahma Sutra itself. As you know, there are 555 Brahma Sutras, and out of them, these 4 are given an amazing amount of respect and commentary. Chatusutri means the 4-fold sutras. We need to understand that. Why? And so this is what we will now begin to take a look at. What is the reason for the importance of these 4 sutras? There are some technical reasons, as you know, that each one of these sutras has its own adhikarana. It's a one topic per sutra. Later on, there are multiple topics in each sutra, but here each sutra is an adhikarana by itself. So we have seen all of that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time revising that. Instead, as I mentioned, let's look at the conceptual value of these 4 sutras. Okay? All right, let us begin. So, to start with, let us consider the basic nature of a creation. Any creation. This is important for us to dwell on, to consider it. What is the basic fundamental nature of a creation? We say, please make a note of it, that whatever comes out of the basic substance of the creation consists of that substance and retains its quality even though it might be hidden. And it might take a while for it to manifest the fact that it is consisting of that substance. The very normal, very, very popular and a very good example of that is the ocean's water. Ocean is the basic substance that gives us one of the most important aspects of our living, which is water. And without water, we are not going to be alive. In addition to a lot of other things, water is this is what is called Pancha Mahabhutas. These are the 5 fundamentals bhutas that are important for life, and one of them is water. So the ocean is the substance of the water. And then there is a creation. The creation consists of that if there is only water in the ocean, and no water elsewhere, life would be very different. In fact, the ocean water also has salt in it, and so it's not. It has to be purified for you to live, and so a lot of creation has to be done, and it is done. How? So the whole natural creation is that the sun heats up the ocean water, which comes up as water vapor in a cloud, and the cloud has a quality of being so light that it can be propelled by wind, by air. Because the ocean is too heavy. The wind can make some waves out of it, but it cannot just move it from one place to the other. So a portion of the water has to be evaporated, and it is so light that it is now movable to the other parts of the world where water is necessary, and then it drops it. And it falls in the form of rain. And rain is very important because without that we will not have the food. And so it drops it. And then it channels back in the form of rivers back to its very substance that it came from. This is the popular example, a very good example, one of the best examples. So this proves the point, and so many other examples also. It proves the point that really the creation is where, the creation here means what? Creation means that there is so much water. You and I, we can have a glass of water. So it forms as a different thing altogether. We don't think of it as belonging to the ocean. Then we have rivers, and then we have ponds, and we have rain. All kinds of things that are portions of this creation, but they all come from the ocean and go back to the ocean. It may look like they're different, but they go back to it. Swami Maheshananji had given another very interesting example. He says, suppose you, and so there is a certain amount of ignorance, because the connection between the source and the creation is not always obvious. So Swami, in order to show that, Swami Maheshananji has given this example, that suppose you have a piece of lemon which is sour. Lemon is sour. So supposing you want to put some sourness in your food, then you squeeze some lemon in it. I've gotten into the habit, this has been very beneficial to me actually for just in the last 5-6 years. It's amazing how somehow you just pick up these small hints, and it really improves your life. I've always had a lot of skin problems. My skin's been very dry and with a lot of eczema, and I'm always, taking Ayurvedic medicines and all kinds of things. This has been my, one of my problems is the skin problem. Lo and behold, 5 years ago, 6 years, somewhere in that time frame, my younger son Manoj happened to tell me, because he also had some skin problems that he may have inherited from me, and but he has been consulting with some, and so he has some muscular issues. He's a golfer, and so one time he had a collapsed lung, and as part of the surgery they actually damaged some of the nerves. Anyway, I don't want to go into the details of that, but he has some physical therapists that he really respects. He told me that the physical therapist told him that the amount of water that you should consume is the half of the weight of yourself in ounces. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you should be drinking 75 ounces in the day. Okay? For ideal health maintenance. Now here's the interesting thing. Out of the 50%, so 75 ounces, 25% to 30% should be drunk in water the moment you get up. First thing you should do when you wake up. And I've never really done that. Except 5 years ago, I decided I'm going to try it. This has had a very beneficial effect on my skin. It has just been amazing. So every morning, I drink 3 cups of water the moment. And it's not been easy because to drink 3 cups, you tend to gag. It's not easy. It was difficult to get used to it. Then my wife gave me a suggestion that what if you put a little bit of lemon? This is how the lemon connection is. This is why I went through the story. You put some lemon juice into it, which some friends have also said that is very beneficial. And so I started doing that. I am telling you, my skin problems are hopefully, touch wood, gone. And I drink much more water during the day, especially because I do some workout also, very intense workout. I sweat a lot. And so this has been phenomenal. Anyway, this is just a personal story. Lemon. Swami Maheshanji says that lemon is sour. Now, do you know where the sourness comes from? The sourness of the lemon or lime is in the seed of the lemon and lime. This is another creation. Because the seed which is unseen, this is where the ignorance comes in. The seed is not seen, but it has lemonness in it. Because otherwise, if you grow a plant from that seed and you have some lemons that come out, they will not be sour. So the sourness of the fruit comes from its very seed, which itself is derived from the flower and plants and so on. So it's an iterative process. Anyway, all it means is this needs to be really thought about. This is an important concept. That whatever the creation is, I just gave you 2 examples. And you can have lots of other examples. Like, for example, when you have the various things made in the house, like cups, saucers, glasses, and all those kinds of things made out of clay. So they are all beautiful forms and functional things, but they are all made out of clay, and they came out of the clay and they will go back to the clay. So you can have that example. But the fact of the matter is that we need to really understand this is an important fundamental aspect of it, is that any creation, any substance of any creative object comes out of some substance and it goes back to it eventually. Like all of the water that we see is the sea water, and it will go back to it. That is where the body of the water is kept. This is the basic thing. So now we should now extend it. These are the examples. But what does it exemplify? It exemplifies that we are a part of the creation. Each human being, every living being, non-living or living, doesn't matter, is part of this very interesting, sophisticated creation. So these are kind of like cups and saucers and so on. And so if we apply the fundamental aspects of it, that all creation comes out of a substance, where did we come out from? We came out of Ishvara, Brahman, Paramatma. That is the basic substance that we are made up out of. And guess what? Just like the water in the river, until it goes back to its own fundamental substance, it keeps on trying to do that. It's not happy. Even if you dam the river, it is patient and it will stay there for a while, but as soon as you let it go, gravitational forces will take it back to its very source. All the rivers merge back into the ocean. Similarly is the human being. We arose from Ishvara. That is the basic substance. That is Brahman. That is the basic substance. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. And even when we are part of a creation, as you know, me, you, she, he, all those kinds of things, we have a certain function and certain form. But basically we want to go back to where we came from. This is an important thing to see. This is a very, very fundamentally important thing for us to base our life on. I will talk more about that, so on. And so what it means is that we, and how do we get back to Ishvara? So we get back to Ishvara not physically. You don't have to do it physically. In fact, that's what we want to do. Somehow we want to get united with God. The fact of the matter is we are already united with God. We are God. We are the very substance. Even when the rivers are there, it is still made out of water. The waterness of the river never goes. It's always there. But the feeling of separation is there. So it is really the feeling of separation that we have to work on. And this feeling of separation needs to be inquired into. Because otherwise it will not go. And the feeling of separation is due to Adhyasa. See the closing of the loop. So the feeling of separation, the isolation, that I am separate from everybody else. I am responsible for my own life. I have to take care of it. No one else really is responsible for it. I am. I am a functioning human being, born at a certain time and doing the best I can to have a happy life. And then God knows what will happen to me later on. I can't worry about it. This is my feeling. This is the feeling of separation. And Vedanta says, hello, hello, are you please listening to me? And say, yes, I've got a lot of other things to do. I don't have a lot of time for, what is it that you have to tell me? You are not separate, sir. I am not separate. What do you mean by I am not separate? I am separate. Don't you see I'm separate? Why? I don't understand why there is a doubt. No. You need to look into it. Really? So, are you sure? You're not telling me because you want some money? Please, please. You need to inquire into it. Well, right now I'm very busy. I can't inquire into it, but I'll think about it. Anytime you have a problem in your life, please let these problems in life are really a hint for you to look into it. Okay? Right now I understand you're busy and you've got, we have these 49ers are in the playoffs and all these things are going on. I'm very busy. I gotta get groceries. Sure, I understand it. But please look into it. You know what the word Jigyasa is? I'm hoping that each one of you has been studying. So I'm just going to close my eyes for a few seconds and let you test yourself. See, if we were in a real class, then I would have given you a test and say, explain the word Jigyasa. But I can't. So all I can do is let me pause for a few seconds and let you test yourself. What does it mean, Jigyasa? Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Just test yourself. And the answer you should have is Jigyasa means intense desire to know. Not a casual desire, but a very well-directed desire. Like for example, the casual desires are you whatever you want to eat, it doesn't matter. But an intense desire is when you want to really get a master's degree or a bachelor's degree, whatever, PhD, what doesn't matter. So you have a goal and you intensely want to pursue that. That is what is called Jigyasa. So a casual one would be, I'm reading some spiritual books. This is what happens. You have the end of the year, New York Times comes out with the 10 best books of the year. And usually about 4 or 5 of them are health related. How to stave off Alzheimer's, whatever the fashion of the day is. Then 4 or 5 of them are how to make more money. And maybe one of them is a spiritual book. Some new age guru who really sounds very good. Eckhart and all kinds of people. And they explain things and you say, wow, this is good. This is good. Oh, by the way, so this is what happens. You all belong to a book club. In fact, there's a friend of mine, it was interesting. who said, he called me one day, this is a couple of years back, and he says, we have a book club. And one of the guys suggested, we don't know anything about Hinduism. So this is a book club where there's 2 or 3 Indians, about 5 or 6 Westerners. So they have a book club that they meet, I don't know, once a month or whatever to discuss a book. It's a good thing to do. And so they said, we don't know anything about Hinduism. We know all about Buddhism. Buddhism has done a marvelous job of really. Buddhism is an interesting thing because it is really a simplified, inadequate copy of Hinduism, is what it is. It was started so that you don't have to go through the whole thing. It's very difficult with Atma and Atma, this, that. You just do some meditation and I'll tell you what, and this is what you need to do. And so they have really promoted themselves very well. And so people know about Buddhism, but Hinduism we don't know. It's very, there's so many gods and Bhagavad Gita, this, that, I don't know. So this guy said, our book club wants to know about Hinduism. Can you recommend a book that we can study? He knows that I've been teaching and this, that, or the other. Do you know, I didn't know what to recommend. He's right, it is confusing. I thought of the Bhagavad Gita is too complicated, it's take too long, it's not just something you can discuss. You're going to have to take some Prakarana Grantha, and so you can take Tattva Bodha, Swamiji's Tattva Bodha. I'm not sure what I recommended, but I was at a loss. I don't know what simple book to read that you can do so. So we have a casual inquiry that comes up, just like this book club. This also in Hindi we can say ये भी ठीक है, वो भी ठीक है, सब कुछ ठीक है, थोड़ा सा ये कर लेते हैं, थोड़ा सा वो कर लेते हैं. So you have a mixture of different. This is a casual inquiry. No. Jigyasa. Yasa means, oh my God. This I want to know. And we'll come to that in a minute as to how it happens. So the first sutra is, there is a possibility and there is an event in everybody's life where through the inquiry you find that all creation comes out of a substance. I am also like a creation. Where did I come from? So I can hasten, I can expedite my reunion with the substance that I came out of. And as you say, I've never really left the substance, but I have a feeling of separation that I need to look into. How? I want to know this. This is a phenomenal thing. So the first sutra is important because he says, Athato Brahma Jigyasa. What it means is there comes a point where the intense desire to know my source and therefore the destination. You see, that's the thing. Just by knowing the source means the past. Destination means the future. Whatever happens in the past is interesting but not that important. What I really want to know is where am I going? Where should I go? What is the basic substance? This I want to inquire into. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. I want to really inquire into this, especially if you tell me that this inquiry supersedes all other inquiries. This is it. Because our life is full of inquiries, different things. We try different things. So this needs to be structured and pursued structurally. This is the non-casual nature of it. So just like the pursuit of any career, like a medicine, it's not a casual thing. Okay, you want to be a doctor? You want to be just, an expert in one thing or the other? That is easy to do. But if you really want to be a doctor, there is a structure to it. So let us examine this inquiry. All right, let's look into that. So this is an interesting thing that we will discuss more. One of the feelings we have is we are confused about why there is so much dukkha in life. How was it created? Why was it? Not how, but why was it created? Why do I have to go through some problems in my life? It's a very basic question. And a part of that question is, why was this created by God? One is, why is there dukkha? Dukkha means lack of peace, lack of happiness. And the second one is, why was it created by God? This is a very fundamental thing that we all have. Either we articulate it or not. Sometimes we are polite and we don't, but if other people who are much more open about it, they'll say, I don't understand this. But in and through our life, this is a question that really involves all of us. Okay? There is a very surprising answer to this. Very surprising. And in the beginning, very hard to even accept as an answer. But the more we look into it, we find that this answer is the right one. There are two aspects to this answer. One aspect is that this was not created per se as a desire by a creator. You see, because most of the creation that we see stems from a desire, stems for some plans. Somebody wants to make a clay pot, and then you want to find out why am I making a clay pot? What is the purpose of it? How do I go about doing it? So there is a certain desire to it. This is called nimitta karana. So in this particular case, so you create something which was not there before. So in this particular case of the overall creation, there is no such desire for create. No such desire to create. Then how did the creation come about? Because the creation is a known fact. It's pratyaksha. Don't you agree there is a creation? Yes, I agree there is a creation. Then if there is a creation, why was there not a desire to create it? This is something different. This is a desireless creation. Desireless creation? How? In fact, I would say not only is it a desireless creation, it is the nature of creation, what you call creation. Nature of creation? What do you mean? This is a so-called creation which is a non-creation. What? So-called creation, non-creation? What do you mean by that? It is always there like that. It was never created to begin with. There is no time element to this creation. This is just the nature of the whole cosmos. And the nature of the cosmos is like all of the things made out of, if clay is the basic substance, all of the things made out of clay in various forms and functionalities. It's always there. So the clay is there in some formless form, or it is there in some form, full form. It's always there. And it will always be the case where the individual pots and pans will go back to the clay and they will come out of it for whatever individual reasons and so on. But there is no purposeful creation that I am just going to create this, and by the way, I'm going to give a lot of dukkha. So two aspects to this. Okay? Two aspects to this funny creation. One is that it is really not a creation, this is the way it is. Always has been, always will be like this. This is one aspect of it. The other aspect, which is very interesting, even more interesting and more important, more relevant for what I seek. Creation, etc., it's just kind of like an intellectual inquiry on my part. But the real stuff I want to know is, how do I eliminate any dukkha from my life? This is my real desire. I don't like any suffering, I don't like any pain. And we're not unique at that. Everyone is like that. And so the real question is, how do we eliminate it completely? Completely. So the second aspect of this is, if you focus on the forms and functionality, you have the opportunity, or you have the incidence of dukkha sukha. Sukha dukkha is part and parcel of the form. If your attention is towards the form and functionality, In other words, anatma. In other words, samsara. You have dukkha. And if, on the other hand, your focus is on the substance behind it, there is no dukkha. This is an important thing for us to see. As a substance, the clay is non-changeable. Even when it seems to change, it doesn't change. This is what is called vivarta upadana karanam. So the definition of vivarta upadana karana means the material cause. And the vivarta upadana karana means that kind of a material cause which is in the form of vivarta. So vivarta means, English, there is a Sanskrit definition of it, swaswarupa apparityagena rupantara apattihi iti vivarta upadana karana. Swaswarupa apparityagena swarupantara apattihi iti vivarta upadana karanam. Translated into English, it means without giving up its own swarupa to apparently take another rupa is called vivarta upadana karanam. So when you have a clay cup, it becomes cup without giving up its clayness. It may look like a cup, but it is really clay. Because you want to drink some water, you want to have a hollow substance so it can enclose water, then you can have some cup. But it has never changed its original position, which is that it is made out of clay. And if that functionality is no longer needed, it will stay as a clay, it will go back to the very substance. So this is the nature where if you look at the stability of the original substance, that it never changes. It is not vulnerable for any changes. There is no beginning or end to it. There is sukha. But if you look at the vulnerability of a cup, it can be dropped any minute from a table and it breaks. So as a cup, it's very vulnerable, very insecure, full of dukkha, but not as a clay. It's the same thing. It's just a matter of what you're looking at. No, I just want to be a cup and I want to be a secure cup. That I don't know how to do. But why do you want to only be a cup? Because I kind of like myself. Don't you want to be a clay that can be all the cups? Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Interesting. Maybe that's what I should do. So this is what the whole world, cosmos, is all about. So I would say keep one in mind that, and so this speaks to the second sutra. So the first one, just look at both the first and the second sutra. So the first sutra is Athato Brahma Jigyasa, meaning at some point of time, you need to look into where you came out from and where you are going back to. Because that is the fundamental nature of all creation. No exceptions. Then you are sort of like a creation, very sophisticated creation. And the second sutra says, Janmadi yasya yataha. It starts the knowledge. In fact, this is what happens. We saw this earlier in the initial stages of our introduction to the four sutras, that the first sutra, in fact, the first sutra is very interesting because that's the only sutra where the word Brahman is mentioned. Only sutra out of the 555. Can you believe it? Only one. So that's the noun, Brahman. All others are pronouns. Like, for example, in Ramayana, you define Rama once. And then you don't have to say Rama went there, Rama went to this, and then Dashratha was telling this. You can say him. He went there. He was given this. So just like in here also, Brahman is the only first sutra. After that, everything is a pronoun. Related to the same one because it's a Brahma Sutra, not any other sutra. That is the focus, that is the subject. So in the second sutra, the teaching really begins. And we'll go into that in more detail, but I want to go back to 9 o'clock. Yeah, I think I can spend enough time to go on to the very first one, which is Jigyasa. Okay. So now, So we were saying, and just a quick revision, that why is so much dukkha in this life? And is there some way to escape it? And so in answer to that, we said that there are, actually, this is an interesting thing. We should look at 5 basic fundamentals of my life. 5 of them. What are the 5? First of all, the 3. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. This is my nature. We'll go into this in more detail in a minute. This is the nature. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. This is the Swarupa of everybody. There are 2 others. And what are the others? Bandhanam and moksha. So just remember this. There are 5 elements, and write it down and think about it. Satyam Jnanam Anantam, or you can say Satchidananda. Sometimes Satchidananda is more attractive because of the word Ananda. Anantam we are not sure of. Infinity. I want joy. I don't want infinity, I want joy. Okay, fine, they're the same thing, but if you want to prefer, you can say Ananda, Satchita. So 5 things. Satchit, Ananda, Bandhanam, and Moksha. Okay, that being the case, now we can summarize that the whole creation is always Satyam Jnanam Anantam. It is always the clay. Always the clay. Clay is the fundamental substance of that example, in that example. And you can say that supposing clay had given some consciousness into it, is really exactly what happens. That our mind, our brain matter is like clay. But it's an interesting clay because there is some sattva guna in the clay of the brain of the human being, and that reflects consciousness. So it looks like that I am conscious because of my brain. And this reflected consciousness is always Satyam Jnanam Anantam, Satchidananda. Plus, if due to whatever reason you think that the Sat Chit Ananda belongs to the brain, you have Dukkha. Belongs to the brain means, what does means is that I am as a separate individual. This is the working of the brain. The brain says, you are a separate individual. And I'll say, yeah, that sounds true to me. So you've accepted you're a separate individual? Yes. What do you want me to do? That's what my experience is. Okay, then you've got a lot of problems. But, so this is the fourth one. Bandhanam. Bandhanam means that as long as you take yourself to be a cup, you are bound. But if you take yourself to be the substance of the cup, which is always Satyam Jnanam Anantam, never changed it, there is moksha. There is complete cessation of sorrow. This is the fundamental part of the whole creation. What really means is this, that as long as my face is turned towards Anatma, which is due to the Maya Shakti, which is due to the ability of the creation to be in apparent parts, I've got dukkha. There's no way to avoid it. Even though I want to avoid it, and I'm trying very hard to avoid it, not possible. So all is lost. I've been doing everything. This is what is called Athato Brahma Jigyasa. That the moment you have an intense desire to look at the basic substance that you came out from, you're moving towards moksha. And when you fully understand that you were never separate, even when you thought you were separate, even when you were apparently separate, if you thoroughly understand this, you have complete moksha. You have moksha, not complete. Moksha is complete. You have complete freedom. This is the five parts of life. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, and Bandhanam and Moksha. And Bandhanam is due to what? Adhyasa. The moment you remove the Adhyasa, you always were Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. You were always perfect, as Vedanta says. but it was a matter of your own confusion. So the first sutra is an important one because it points out that all you need to do is to inquire into it. Vicharam na sahate. This Dvaita does not stand inquiry. The moment you look into it, it disappears. Intensely look into it, not casually. Casually it will frighten, the world will frighten you. But the more you look into it, it disappears. So there we say, so now we can proceed further, that in one way to look at it, if you want to sort of give a reason why God has created so many problems, because one can look at it this way, because until we inquire into the nature of the problems, we will not turn into the substance, into the very basic one. So you have to translate your experiences in terms of a structured inquiry. How? Let's look into that. So this is what the growth is of a human being. And you need to become an adhikari. You must be qualified to inquire. Because, for example, a child is not qualified to inquire. And many people never outgrow their childishness. They never inquire. But if you are deserving, you become qualified, you become an adhikari, you become eligible. That's the word I was looking for, not qualified, but eligibility. That means jigyasa. How? Let's look at this. So what you find is, in the beginning, you find, though I'll just enough time to just go into one aspect of it. We'll have to defer the other aspect for next time. When a child is born, you just take things, all the changes, this, that, or the other, for its face value. Then as one's problems become more real in life, you find that really everything is changing. So this means that the whole world is continuously getting destroyed and reborn. Everything is new, moment to moment. So this is what the word Jagat means. Jayate gacchati iti. It's born, gone. Born, gone. It's so vinashita. The quality of the world to be continuously getting destroyed and reborn, destroyed and reborn, destroyed and reborn is there. This becomes apparent to a thinking person. Number one. Number two, you cannot ascertain the vinashita of the Jagat unless you are constant. Only when you are not moving, can you ascertain the Vinashita? Like, supposing you are, supposing there is a train, you're sitting in one train and you see another train going fast. You can only see the speed of the other train if you are stationary. As it sometimes happens, if there are two trains going simultaneously and you're only looking at each other, not the rest of the background, then the other train seems stationary. So the moving of something, the Vinashita of the world, is only possible if one is not moving. And that is actually our experience. I was young. You can only say that, as we have discussed it many times before, if you are someone who is the same. Very interesting. I was young. You cannot make that statement unless you are the same person who used to be young. So the Vinashita of the body, the crumblingness of the body is very apparent. Changes of the body, not crumbliness, but changes of the body. Now you become old, like that. But this non-moving, non-changing, stationary, avinashita, is called avinashita, is only relative. So the human being knows that it is not changing, but it says only for the time being. But the whole possibility of the world is triggered by the thinking, I am relatively not changing. Is it possible that there is something unchanging? Absolutely, not relatively. So I am, in Sanskritam you can say, my satyam jnanam anantam is apekshitam, relatively. But paramarthikam na. Is there something which is paramarthikam? So it starts with that inquiry. And if you pursue that inquiry, that is what is called jigyasa. So we will end the class today. We are not completely done. We are just starting out on the analysis of these 4 sutras. And the one in the beginning is jigyasa. Jigyasa towards an intense desire to understand what substance did I come from and where am I going. And if you have that, then you are going in the wrong path of removing all of your sukha dukkha, all your relatives' dukkha, and become unconditionally sukhi. So we will continue with that in our next class. So I think this is the way I would like to revisit the 4 sutras, not just the technical analysis of it, but how it is relevant in our lives, and so we will continue to do so. Let's finish our prayers of the second part of Dakshinamurti Stotram. Rahu grasta divankarendu sadrisho maya samachadnat sanmatra karanopasamharanato yo bhut sushuptaf puman pragaswap samiti prabodha samaye yapratyabhigyayate tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Balyadishu api jagradadishu tatha sarva swavastha swapi vyavritta svanuvartamanam ahamityanta spurantam sada swatmanam prakatikaroti bhajatam yo mudraya bhadraya tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Vishvam pashyati karyakaranataya swaswami sambandhataha shishyacharya tathaiva pitruputradhyatmana bhedataha swapne jagrati vaya esha purusho maya paribhramitaha tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Bhurambhamsya nalo nilo ambaramaharnartho himamshuf puman ityabhati characharatmakamidam yasyaiva murtyashtakam nanyat kinchana vidyate vimrishatam yasmat parasmat vibhoho tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Sarvatmattvamiti sprutikritamidam yasmat amushminstave tenasya shravanat tadarthamananat dhyanat sasankirtana sarvatmahavibhuti sahitam syadishwaratvam swataha siddhye tatpunirashtadha parinatam chaishwaryam avyahatam ashubhani nirachaste tanoti shubhasantatim smriti matrena yatpumsam brahmatan mangalam param atikalyana rupatvat nitya kalyana samshrayat smartranam varadatvat cha brahmatan mangalam viduhu ओंकारश्चाथ शब्दश्च द्वावेतौ ब्रह्मणः पुरा कंठं भित्त्वा विनिर्यातौ तस्मान्माङ्गलिकौ बुभौ ओमथ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ओम शांति 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 हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम Good to see you all about. Wonderful. Hope you're all doing well. Stay well. Stay away from catching COVID. I think it's going to hopefully get better soon. So interesting to see how that evolves. Anyway, very nice to see you all today. And look forward to continuing this revision of the four sutras. And if you had any questions, then please let me know. You can ask me on the emails. But very good to see you all. So if there's no other questions, I take your leave and hopefully we'll see you next week. Om.